Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom, your power, your entire life. Most people never find this space. They are reaction machines, programmed by past experiences and conditioned by external circumstances, bouncing from one automatic response to another like pinballs in someone else's game. Something happens, and they react. Someone says something, and they respond. An event occurs, and they immediately move, usually in ways that make everything worse. They spend their entire lives reacting and wonder why they never feel in control. The Stoics discovered something revolutionary 2,000 years ago that neuroscience is only now confirming. You are not your reactions. You are the consciousness that can observe reactions and choose whether to act on them. This gap between what happens to you and what you do about it is the only true freedom you have. Everything else, your circumstances, other people's behavior, external events, all of it is beyond your control. But this gap, this moment of choice between stimulus and response, this belongs to you completely. And when you learn to master this space, when you stop reacting automatically and start responding consciously, everything in your life changes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This was not philosophy for him. This was survival. He ruled an empire in crisis, facing plague, war, betrayal, and constant chaos. He could not control any of these external events, but he could control his response to them. And that control, that refusal to react automatically, that commitment to conscious choice in the face of overwhelming circumstances, that is what made him one of history's most effective leaders and most respected philosophers. Think about your last reactive moment. Something happened that triggered you emotionally. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe you received a critical email. Maybe your partner said something that hit a nerve. What did you do? If you are like most people, you reacted immediately. Anger flooded your system. Words came out before you thought them through. Actions were taken before you considered consequences. And afterward, you probably regretted at least part of your response. You probably thought, "I should have handled that differently." But in the moment, there was no should. There was only automatic reaction, pattern running its course, stimulus triggering pre-programmed response. This is the default state of human consciousness. We are walking collections of conditioned responses, built up over years of repeated patterns. Someone raises their voice, and you raise yours back. Someone criticizes you, and you defend yourself. Something goes wrong, and you panic. These reactions feel inevitable, like they are just who you are, like you have no choice. But the Stoics proved this wrong. They showed that between every stimulus and every response, there is a moment where choice exists. The work is learning to find that moment and use it. Epictetus, who went from slave to philosopher, understood this more deeply than perhaps anyone in history. He had no control over his external circumstances for years. He was property, beaten, abused, powerless in every external way. Yet he discovered that his mind remained his own. His reactions remained his choice. He could not control what was done to him, but he could control how he received it, how he interpreted it, how he responded to it. This discovery became the foundation of his teaching. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is not the same as suppressing your emotions or pretending things do not affect you. The Stoics were not advocating for emotional numbness. They were advocating for emotional sovereignty. Your feelings are valid information about your internal state, but they are not commands that must be obeyed. You can feel anger without acting in anger. You can feel fear without being controlled by fear. You can feel hurt without lashing out from hurt. The space between feeling and action is where wisdom lives. Modern neuroscience has revealed the mechanism behind this. When something triggering happens, your amygdala, the emotional center of your brain, fires first. This happens in milliseconds. Then, if you pause even briefly, your prefrontal cortex, the rational center, can come online and evaluate the situation. The first response is always emotional and automatic. The second response, if you create space for it, can be rational and chosen. The Stoics did not know about brain anatomy, but they knew about this gap experientially. They practiced finding it, widening it, living in it. Seneca spent years studying his own reactive patterns. He noticed that most of his suffering came not from events themselves, but from his immediate reactions to events. Someone betrayed him, and his immediate reaction was rage. That rage led to words and actions that made the situation worse. Something did not go as planned, and his immediate reaction was anxiety. That anxiety paralyzed him and prevented effective action. He realized that if he could interrupt the automatic reaction, even for a moment, he could choose a better response. So he practiced the pause, not as occasional technique but as a way of life. Here is the critical insight. Your reactive patterns were learned, which means they can be unlearned. You were not born automatically angry when criticized or anxious when uncertain or defensive when challenged. These patterns were installed through repeated experience, usually in childhood, and then reinforced through years of repetition. They feel like who you are, but they are just habits. And habits, no matter how deep, can be changed through conscious practice. The question is not whether you will face triggering circumstances. You will. Life guarantees difficulty, conflict, disappointment, loss. The question is who will be in control when those circumstances arrive. Will it be your conditioned patterns, your automatic reactions, your past programming? Or will it be you, the conscious awareness that can observe those patterns and choose differently? This is what the Stoics meant by self-mastery. Not control over external events, which is impossible, but control over your own mind and responses, which is the only control that matters. Right now, as you hear these words, you have reactive patterns ready to deploy. Someone will say something today that triggers you. Something will not go as planned. Some circumstance will arise that you did not want or expect. In that moment, you will have a choice you might not realize you have. You can react automatically, letting your programming run its course. Or you can pause, find the space between stimulus and response, and choose consciously how you want to engage. The difference between these two options is the difference between being controlled by a life and directing your life. The stakes here are higher than most people realize. Your reactions determine your relationships. They determine your career trajectory. They determine your health, your happiness, your sense of agency in the world. Every time you react automatically, you reinforce the pattern. You become more reactive, more at the mercy of circumstances, more like a leaf blown by wind. Every time you pause and respond consciously, you strengthen your sovereignty. You become more intentional, more effective, more free. Before we go deeper into how to actually stop reacting, I want to ask you directly. Are you tired of being controlled by your automatic responses? Are you ready to find the space between stimulus and response and start making conscious choices? If so, subscribe to this channel, because everything we create here is designed to help you build this capacity. This is not motivational content to make you feel good temporarily. This is training for the most important skill you can develop: self-control. Understanding that you should stop reacting is different from actually being able to stop reacting in the moment. The gap between intellectual knowledge and embodied practice is vast. The Stoics knew this, which is why they did not just philosophize about control. They developed specific daily practices to build the capacity for non-reaction. These practices are as effective today as they were 2,000 years ago. perhaps more so in our hyper-reactive culture. The first practice is morning preparation. Before your day begins, before you encounter any triggering circumstances, you prepare your mind for what is coming. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning without exception. He would sit quietly and remind himself, "Today I will encounter difficult people, frustrating situations, unexpected problems. This is guaranteed. The question is not whether these things will happen, but how I will respond when they do." He would visualize specific challenges he might face and mentally rehearse responding with wisdom rather than reaction. This practice works because it primes your consciousness. When you have already imagined being cut off in traffic and responding with calm, you are more likely to actually respond with calm when it happens. When you have already visualized receiving criticism and pausing before responding, the pause becomes more accessible in the real moment. You are installing new programming intentionally, creating new neural pathways before the old ones get triggered. This is not positive thinking. This is tactical preparation. Try this tomorrow morning. Before you check your phone, before you engage with anyone, sit for 5 minutes and think through your day. What triggering circumstances might arise? Who might you encounter that typically triggers reactive patterns? What could go wrong? Then, for each scenario, visualize yourself pausing before responding. See yourself finding the space between stimulus and response. Feel what it would feel like to remain centered despite provocation. You are training your nervous system for non-reaction before reaction is demanded. The second practice is the physical pause. When something triggering happens, your body reacts before your conscious mind even knows what is happening. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. Stress hormones flood your system. This physiological reaction drives the behavioral reaction that follows. If you can interrupt the physiological reaction, you can prevent the behavioral reaction. The simplest and most effective way to do this is through breath. Seneca taught his students that the first response to any triggering event should be 3 deep breaths before any words or actions. Not quick breaths, slow deliberate breaths. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 6 counts. This is not mystical. This is physiological. Deep, slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the calming counterbalance to your stress response. It gives your prefrontal cortex time to come online. It creates the space between stimulus and response. Practice this now. Think of something that typically triggers you. As you think about it, notice what happens in your body. Tension, heat, acceleration. Now take 3 slow, deep breaths using the pattern above. Notice what happens. The intensity decreases. The urgency fades. The reactive impulse loses its grip. This is the tool you need available in every triggering moment. But it only works if you practice it enough that it becomes automatic, if you make the pause itself your new automatic response. The third practice is pattern recognition. You cannot change reactive patterns you do not see. Most people are completely unconscious of their patterns. They just notice that they keep having the same conflicts, the same problems, the same outcomes, and they blame external circumstances. The Stoics practiced detailed self-observation. At the end of each day, they would review what happened and specifically look for their reactive moments. When did I react automatically? What triggered me? What pattern was running? Start keeping a reaction journal. Every evening, write down one moment from the day when you reacted in a way you regret. Describe what happened, what you felt, what you did, and what pattern was operating. Do not judge yourself. Just observe and document. After a week, you will see patterns. The same triggers appear repeatedly. The same reactions follow the same circumstances. Once you see the pattern clearly, you can prepare for it specifically. You know that when X happens, You typically react with Y, so the next time X begins to happen, you can catch yourself before Y unfolds. The fourth practice is reframing the narrative. Most reactive patterns are driven by stories you tell yourself about what things mean. Someone disagrees with you, and you tell yourself they are attacking you, so you react defensively. Something goes wrong, and you tell yourself you are incompetent, so you react with shame or anger. Someone ignores you, and you tell yourself you are not valued, so you react with hurt or aggression. The event itself is neutral. Your story about the event creates the reaction. Epictetus taught that people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. The same event can trigger completely different reactions in different people because they are telling themselves different stories about what it means. The practice is to catch yourself in the story and question it. Someone did not respond to your email. Your story: they are ignoring me, they do not respect me, I am not important. Alternative story: they are busy, they forgot, they will respond later. Neither story is provably true in the moment, but one story triggers a reactive spiral, and the other allows you to remain centered. When something triggering happens, pause and ask, what story am I telling myself about this? Is that story definitely true? What are alternative explanations? This simple practice interrupts the automatic narrative that drives automatic reaction. It creates space for a more balanced interpretation. And interpretation is everything. Change the story, change the reaction. The fifth practice is value alignment. Many reactive moments happen because your actions are not aligned with your values. Someone provokes you, and you react angrily, even though one of your core values is treating people with respect. Something goes wrong, and you panic, even though one of your core values is staying calm under pressure. The gap between your values and your reactions creates internal conflict that makes you more reactive, not less. Marcus Aurelius would start each day by reminding himself of his core values: wisdom, justice, courage, self-discipline. Then, throughout the day, when faced with reactive moments, he would ask, what would the wise version of me do right now? What response would be just? What would courage look like here? What does self-discipline require? This instantly shifted him from reactive emotion to conscious choice aligned with who he wanted to be. Write down your 3 to 5 core values. The principles that define the person you want to be, not the person you sometimes are. Then, in triggering moments, ask yourself, what would the version of me that fully embodies these values do right now? This question pulls you out of reactive pattern and into conscious choice. It connects the present moment to your larger vision for who you are becoming. And that connection is powerful enough to override automatic reactions. The sixth practice is consequence projection. Most reactions happen because we are focused on the present intensity of emotion without considering what comes after. You want to send an angry email because you feel angry right now. You want to yell because you feel disrespected right now. You want to quit because you feel frustrated right now. The Stoics practiced projecting forward. Before any reaction, they would ask, if I do this, what will happen next? And after that, and after that, Seneca called this seeing the whole board. Chess players do not just make moves based on present position. They see several moves ahead. The same principle applies to reactions. That angry email might feel satisfying to send right now, but what happens after? The relationship damages. The conflict escalates. You regret it. That is not worth the temporary satisfaction of venting emotion. When you project consequences, many reactions that seem compelling in the moment lose their appeal entirely. Before you react to anything significant, pause and play the scenario forward. If I respond this way, what happens next? How will I feel about this tomorrow? Next week? Next year? Will this reaction move me toward the life I want or away from it? This temporal distance creates emotional distance. It allows you to see that the intense feeling demanding immediate reaction is temporary, but the consequences of that reaction might be permanent. The seventh practice is building tolerance for discomfort. Much of our reactivity is simply low tolerance for uncomfortable emotion. Something makes us angry, and we cannot sit with anger, so we must discharge it through reaction. Something makes us anxious, and we cannot tolerate anxiety, so we must do something, anything, to make it go away. The Stoics built their emotional tolerance intentionally. They would sit with difficult emotions without acting on them, training themselves to feel uncomfortable things without being controlled by them. Start small. The next time you feel a strong emotion demanding immediate action, set a timer for 5 minutes. Sit with the emotion, feel it fully, notice where it lives in your body. Watch it change and shift. Do not act on it. Just be with it. You will discover something remarkable. Emotions, even intense ones, peak and subside. They do not last forever. They do not require action. You can feel angry without acting in anger. You can feel anxious without being driven by anxiety. This discovery is freedom. As we reach the midpoint, I want to remind you that these practices are not one-time exercises. They are daily disciplines that build capacity over time. The Stoics practiced them for decades and still had reactive moments. The goal is not perfection. The goal is increasing the frequency of conscious response and decreasing the frequency of automatic reaction. Subscribe if you are committed to this work, because we release new training every week. Let us go deeper into what actually changes when you stop reacting. Because the promise is not just that you will feel more in control. The promise is that everything changes. Your relationships transform. Your effectiveness multiplies. Your internal experience shifts fundamentally. Understanding what changes and why helps maintain motivation for the difficult practice of non-reaction. The first thing that changes is your relationships. Most relationship problems are reaction problems. Someone says something that triggers you. You react. They react to your reaction. You react to their reaction. Within minutes, you are in a conflict that neither person wanted or intended, all because neither person could find the space between stimulus and response. Now imagine a different scenario. They say something triggering. You pause. You breathe. You respond consciously, addressing the content without reactive emotion. The entire dynamic shifts. There is no escalation. There is conversation instead of conflict. Marcus Aurelius practiced this with people who actively opposed him. Senators who schemed against him. Generals who questioned his authority. Family members who disappointed him. His first impulse was likely reactive anger, defensive justification, or punitive action. But he trained himself to pause, to find the space, to respond based on principle rather than emotion. This made him remarkably effective at navigating complex political situations. People could not manipulate him through provocation because he did not react to provocation. Apply this to your own relationships. Think about your recurring conflicts. Almost all of them follow a predictable pattern. They say this, you react this way. They react to your reaction, and you are off to the races. Now imagine you stop reacting. They say the triggering thing. You pause. You respond calmly. Either the conflict does not start, or it de-escalates immediately. One person refusing to react changes the entire system. You cannot control whether they react, but you can control whether you do. And often, your non-reaction creates space for their non-reaction. The second thing that changes is your effectiveness. Reactive people are predictable people. Predictable people are easy to manipulate. If someone knows that criticizing you will make you defensive, they can control you through criticism. If someone knows that provoking you will make you angry, they can destabilize you through provocation. If someone knows what buttons to push, they can make you dance like a puppet. Non-reactive people are unpredictable in the best way. You cannot manipulate someone who does not react automatically to your provocations. Seneca observed this in political contexts constantly. The people who maintained power were not the most aggressive or the most reactive. They were the people who could remain calm while others lost their heads. They could be insulted without responding emotionally. They could be threatened without reacting fearfully. This non-reactivity made them dangerous in the best sense. Their opponents could not predict or control them. Their allies could rely on them because they would not make impulsive decisions. This applies beyond politics. In business, the negotiator who does not react to pressure tactics wins. In sports, the athlete who does not react to trash talk performs better. In any competitive context, emotional control is tactical advantage, but it extends to non-competitive contexts too. The